All right, Stokastic, here we go. It's your old pal Emac coming to you on a Sunday night here, joined by one Mr. Greg Ehrenberg. Some would call him third leg Greg because he is quick with the three-leg parlays. Mr. Ehrenberg, how are you? I just did that one on the fly.
Nice. Yeah. Good. I'm having a really good NFL season. I haven't banked anything in terms of coming in first, but this is as good of a season as I've had without winning GPPs. Like I've pretty regularly been 2-3xing my money on all the sites I've been playing on. So today just played on FanDuel and DraftKings for the main slate, but I had a top 20 lineup over on FanDuel. I had a lot of good lineups over on DraftKings. Nothing that won a GPP outright, but it was really profitable. As far as betting went, that went well also solely because of Ladd McConkey. Otherwise, I've been having the most dog shit betting week of my life, but it kind of got back to even just because of Ladd McConkey today and betting some of the ladders there with Quentin Johnston all of a sudden not being expected to play yesterday. So yeah, I have no complaints. I got to hang out with my dad and watch some football today. There was shitty weather out, so I had a real good excuse. Not that I would go anywhere anyway, but I had a real excuse to not go anywhere today also because the weather was shitty, raining and windy here. So I'm good. I'm in good spirits, Emac.
So he's got to be riding high after the Giants beat Philly.
Oh, my dad.
Well, what does he call Cam Scatabo? What does he call him?
Just the maniac. just a maniac. But I mean, it is really, who would fit in perfectly with this Giants team is like a young Rob Gronkowski, because it's like it's like a team of frat bros. But yeah, he could not be more thrilled. My dad's trying to figure out like, what Pro Bowl receivers are available. Like he's ready for the Giants to cash in all of their draft picks so they could contend for the Super Bowl this year.
Oh, I love it. I love that people still think that way. As we are in our own little microcosm, forgetting what's in the standings, forgetting what's in anything else. There are still true fans out there that are just rooting for the uniforms. Love it. Love it. Another thing I love, everybody coming into the chat, hit that like button. We appreciate that. I see all the regulars cruising on in. Shout out to Amy S, Guitar Z-Man, SC, Elway's Army. We are lifelong enemies because, of course, I am a Seattle Seahawks fan. And John Elway was, when I was growing up, he was the king, the golden arm, golden boy of the Broncos. But you know who's king today? The early slate, Elway's Army. He crushed it. Sent us out a nice little tweet there. He had some top finishes in several different contests, the mini max and quarter and the dime and a few others. So shout out to him using the tools. Not a bad way to go. He's also in the premium Slack, or Discord. I just everything is Slack. It's like
I feel you.
Making copies is a Xerox. A Kleenex is a tissue is a Kleenex. There are just certain things.
I feel you, Mac. I mean, it's the same for the longest time when my dad would call, like the Ravens, the Colts, like he would just get like the teams mixed up. Like, how do you not know these things? But now I get older too. Slack is Discord. Discord is Slack. And then when I say wrong, people are like, that's not what it is. I'm like, you know what I'm talking about. It's you just learn certain things and they just become part of your vernacular. And it's hard to erase that. Like, here's the one for me. I don't think I'm ever going to call Twitter X. That is Twitter to me. I don't know. Like the next generation, maybe they're going to call it X. That is always going to be Twitter to me. I will not be able to overcome that.
I would agree with that. No one letter names unless, of course, it's my beloved M's. I see Brian Matthews is in there. Hey, let's hope they win this one tonight against Toronto. That would be fun. Minus 165 favorites going against Kevin Gausman. Doesn't look great. But there are some fun wagers there with the lefties, Dalton Varsho and Barger. I think are rather interesting. But let's get into football here because, of course, we have a fun game. Hefty total here. Last I saw was about 53, 52 and a half, 53, depending on where you're looking. Did that maintain throughout the afternoon when I was writing tomorrow's article for the doubleheader? I was not paying attention. Going to the handy-dandy live odds page here on OddsShopper, free to everybody. Let's take a peek. I'm waiting for NBA to start. That'll be fun. We are looking at totals. So 51 and a half total. You can get it at 52 and 52.5, depending on the many sports books you are looking at. We have the Chiefs favored by about 2.5 points. So essentially a field goal here. Chiefs coming off that Monday night loss in Jacksonville. And Detroit they were just kind of toying with the Bengals last week. So everybody should be reared up and ready to go. Outside of, I think these teams met in preseason. They haven't met since I think it was 2023. Funny enough, most of the same Chiefs are the Lions have the same skill position players with the addition of Jameson Williams and then Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, a little bit older. They have Xavier Worthy now. Different running back packages, but couldn't really infer a lot from that game. So we're going to be breaking this one down as is. Not a lot of track record between these two, but we're looking at two potential Super Bowl contenders. What is your initial lean? Do you have a lean on the over or the under or a particular team to win tonight?
Oh, okay. So not really on the over under. Chiefs games are so bizarre. Like how many times is there a Chiefs game where you're like, oh, this game for sure should be high scoring, and then it finishes like 13-12, and there's some weird fluke play that happens at the end of the game for them to win by a point. And then you start to count the Chiefs out, and all of a sudden the offense starts to look really good, which, by the way, I think that's where the Chiefs are trending now, just in terms of Xavier Worthy, healthy-ish. Doesn't seem to be 100% quite yet, but he's getting there. You also got Rashee Rice coming back from his suspension soon as well. Then all of a sudden you're going to have Patrick Mahomes with a couple of deep threats, and then these other guys as well who have played prominent roles for them at points, whether it be, Tyquan Thornton, who's been a big play hitter for them at times. You've had Hollywood Brown has put up some good games. Travis Kelce, certainly not peak anymore, but he's still able to provide, some solid contributions. Now all of a sudden you've got Smith as a young running back who also looks like he could be a weapon catching passes. So you just start to put all these weapons together once it'll probably take a game or two for Rashee Rice to really have his feet underneath him. Don't forget too, he also tore his ACL last year. So it's going to be him coming back from not just the suspension, but also just getting used to football and contact. But I think the Chiefs are going to be an elite offense again, 3-4 weeks, something like that. But anyway, I am going to be siding with the Chiefs, picking them to win this game, but it should be very, very competitive.
Yep, I'm just looking to see what we have for the inactives. There's a ton of injuries for Detroit. Bakai's out again. He's their backup kick returner. Their starting tackle, Taylor Decker, is out. Zach Cunningham and Terrion Arnold are out. So does the linebacker and cornerback. All we know that Avonte Maddox, their defensive back, is out. Another defensive lineman, Aleem McNeil, is out. And then a couple offensive linemen are banged up as well. I can't tell. I'm assuming Khalif Raymond is available. He's not on the inactive list. He got a neck injury early in the last game. Let's see.
Yeah, he's available. We've got him projected to, be involved to some extent. We've got him projected for 3 fantasy points. So at 2K, he's somebody who could be a flyer, but he really should be priced as one of the slightly cheaper players, I would think. But whatever, at 2K, he's all right. There's cheaper guys who I prefer. There are guys who project better that are cheaper than Khalif Raymond. But yeah, he is expected to play tonight.
Yeah, and I was more thinking, could this help out Isaac Tesla a little bit here from that one? That is not going to be a boost, but Tesla's still in play. No real notable issues for Kansas City, aside from, as Greg mentioned, Rashee Rice still finishing up his suspension. He will be eligible to return next week. Okay, well, let's look at the top here with our quarterbacks. So the Chiefs have done a pretty good job on defense, but it's not like they've had a major murderer's row of quarterbacks coming through. They gave up 318 yards and 3 touchdowns in week 1. That was way back a lifetime ago in Brazil in the opener to Justin Herbert. They gave up on Monday 228 passing yards to Trevor Lawrence. He also ran 2 in the game winner and threw for 1. So that was a little bit surprised. But then Aside from those two bookended games, they've allowed one quarterback passing touchdown and one quarterback running touchdown in the 3 games in between that. So the Chiefs defense is for real. So that makes things a little tricky for Goff. But wait, Goff is one of the most efficient quarterbacks we've seen this season. He leads the league with 12 touchdown passes, despite averaging just 237 passing yards per game. That is crazy. In the 4 wins, the last 4 games, all of which have been wins, he has 28, 28, 27, and 23 pass attempts. In the loss, 39. That was in week 1 in Lambeau Field. Last year in 2 losses, 59 attempts against Buffalo in a 48-42 loss, 55 in a 20-16 loss against Tampa. And then in 2023, 5 losses, 35, 53, 44, 35, and 34 pass attempts. So the point is with Goff, if it's negative game flow here, or the Detroit is not able to run efficiently, he seems to get massive output or opportunities anyway. So I like him. I like him a lot, and I think he's viable in the multiplier slot. I prefer him in the flex slot because there's nothing rushing yards. He averages about 2 or 3 rushing yards per game for his career. Pretty weak. But I like Goff. I'm handing this over to you. Do you like Goff? Do you like Mahomes? Do you want to talk passing games? You lead the way here, Greg.
Sure. So let's start. We could go, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers in that order. But the thing that's most important to me when it comes to the quarterbacks is twofold. One being the massively high ownership that is going to Patrick Mahomes in the captain and the MVP spots. He is by a mile the most popular multiplier option on both DraftKings as well as FanDuel. So that's one thing that stands out. If you're playing cash games, Mahomes is the guy to click on. If you're playing GPPs, he's also reasonable. But with that said, you're going to have to do something to differentiate a Patrick Mahomes multiplier lineup just because of how popular he's going to be in that position. As far as Goff goes, clearly Goff is somebody who we're going to want to have some exposure to. In the flex, he actually is showing up a little bit underweight to us in the Sims. He is showing up in about a third of our lineups where he's projected for over 40% ownership, but he barely shows up in the multiplier spot. And that to me is what's most important with Jared Goff. And it also comes off of what you had said before about his lack of rushing upside. I very seldomly like to play non-rushing quarterbacks in the MVP or captain spot on DraftKings/FanDuel. And this slate is no different. Actually, if anything, this slate even more so, I don't want to be on them because there are so many high upside skill position players that we have in this game, even outside the quarterbacks. You've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. You've got Xavier Worthy, who's capable of making big plays. You've got Jahmyr Gibbs as well. So when you consider all of those potential options to be going to with the ceiling, it's hard for me to see how Jared Goff would be the highest scoring player in this game without rushing upside, because even if Goff has a big game, Amon-Ra St. Brown or one of his pass catchers or Jahmyr Gibbs is probably still going to outscore him. So Goff is fine as a flex option. I am going to be underweight to the field to him just as our data isn't liking Goff quite as much, but it's just because there's so many other pay up guys who I am prioritizing. So not to give out like the whole slate at once here, but I have more exposure to Amon-Ra St. Brown, Xavier Worthy, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Patrick Mahomes than Jared Goff, which ultimately just leaves me underweight to the field on him.
All right. The notes on Mahomes, because I am a Mahomie. We see him on so many primetime slates, and if not primetime, the Saturday late season stuff, all these little one-off ones, because why not? The Chiefs have been in the Super Bowl 5 of the last 6 years. Of course, they're going to be on primetime quite a bit. Last week, he had his first 300-yard passing game. Last week, Monday Night Football. He had his first 300-yard passing game of the season. He had 6 carries for 60 yards and a touchdown. 3 times this season, he has rushed for more than 57 yards. This is something that we have talked about on prior Sunday Night Football games where we've seen Goff or Mahomes, and it has been intentional. He and Andy Reid said, hey, he's going to be running more this year. That's just the way this offense is shaping up, and he has had to carry more of the load, particularly with the way defenses are playing more of the high cover stuff and taking away the downfield threats. Not that the Chiefs really have anyone, or do they with Tyquan Thornton? We'll find out. But that is a nice booster for Mahomes. He's averaging almost 38 rushing yards per game this season. I think his career average is around 21. So it's a significant increase there. Now, he doesn't do a lot of design plays. He takes what's given. And after he got what should have been a horrible concussion, and somehow he didn't a few years back when he kind of stopped running, if it wasn't a playoff game, he's mobile. He can do it. He can do everything. So clearly we like him. The running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs, spendy, but looks good. Once we set that aside, now on Thursday we saw Cam Scatterbo. There's no way you can pay that much for Cam Scatterbo, and then he scored 3 touchdowns. Weird stuff happens, and as Greg mentioned, tons of multi-touchdown potential for a lot of these skill position players in this particular game. So Gibbs very, very much in play, and not to be lost, he actually tied for the league lead with James Cook and I was going to say Travis Henry, Derrick Henry last year. With 16 rushing touchdowns. They each had 2 receiving. Gibbs had 4. So he led the league with 20 touchdowns last year. So he is quite outstanding. We saw the little narrative boost there on Sunday for Montgomery, who got through the touchdown pass, ran one in. These guys can be played together. It's going to come down to touchdowns. The analysis, as always, is, it's more Monty between the tackles, and the passing game is a little bit more towards Gibbs. He's a little bit more dynamic, but they're both capable in all facets of the game. So that's kind of an interesting spot. How do you feel about them? And then we can play pin the tail on the donkey with the Kansas City running backs.
Yeah. So as far as the Detroit backfield goes, I am much more interested today in Jahmyr Gibbs than I am in David Montgomery. So there's a couple of reasons for that. One of them is that Montgomery's just priced in a weird range at $7K, to where I just don't really find those guys. Like the same with Sam Laporta tonight, Travis Kelce, David Montgomery. I just don't have very much exposure to that 7 to 8K range. It's just not that difficult to get all the way up to the most expensive guys like Patrick Mahomes, like Jahmyr Gibbs, like Amon-Ra St. Brown. And my lineups are just trending to be more towards stars and scrubs. There's a lot of guys who are 5K and below that I think present a pretty decent amount of upside for this slate. So I really strongly prefer Jahmyr Gibbs, who has a lot more pass catching upside, is overall the more dynamic DFS player. The thing that I hate about David Montgomery is that he is typically, now, the last time I said this, he went and rushed for 1 billion yards, and it ended up not being true. But in general, David Montgomery is very touchdown dependent. He's typically not somebody who goes out and rushes for 100+ yards. He typically doesn't get a ton of carries either. So you look at him overall for the season, he only has 1 game with more than 1 target. He only has 1 game with more than 12 carries. It was last week, the game against the Bengals. He had 18 carries. The game was also a blowout. Generally, you're getting 9 to 12 carries from David Montgomery. You're not getting passing game work. He's mildly efficient. So if you're only going to be getting out of him 10-ish carries and nothing else, you need him to fall into the end zone to have a good game. And you might even need him to fall into the end zone multiple times for a game like this. And for a running back who we can't really expect to have more than 9, 10, 11, 12 carries, it's really hard to expect that he's going to convert multiple of them, or even one of them in all likelihood, into touchdowns. So I strongly prefer getting to Jahmyr Gibbs over David Montgomery. And then there are just other guys who kind of project comparably to Montgomery for us that are cheaper. So if you look at Montgomery, we've got him projected right around 10 fantasy points at $7K. Well, Kareem Hunt is projected for 8.5 fantasy points at $4,600. We've also got, for example, Harrison Butker is projected for 9 fantasy points at $5,000. We've got Hollywood Brown, who's projected for 10 fantasy points at $5,400. So there's all these guys in this game, Emac, who are $2,000 to $3,000 less expensive than David Montgomery, but have the same projection as him. So I'm finding him hard to get to.
Yes, I would concur. But as you mentioned, weird stuff tends to happen. Kansas City backfield, kind of a mess. We are seeing relatively equal offensive opportunities for Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco. Pacheco is playing on more snaps, however. It's Hunt with 3 rushing touchdowns on the season, Pacheco with 1 receiving touchdown. And then we've seen the rookie Brashard Smith working in a little bit. He has gotten, I want to say, 7 targets over the last 2 games. So, and Andy Reid oftentimes goes to the odd player that we wouldn't think. This year, it's just kind of a muddled mess here. This is very different between the 2 sites, in my opinion here, Greg. On FanDuel, it's let me get to my page here. So on FanDuel, we have Hunt. I have him in the lead, 5,400. You've got Pacheco at 7,600, half point PPR, so that kind of neutralizes these guys. And then Smith is at 3,000. Smith's better play on DraftKings. But it's clearly for that discount, I would prefer to go with Hunt. People say, oh, you don't talk enough about FanDuel here. Here's the distinct difference between these guys. On DraftKings, it's the other way because you have Pacheco at 4,000, Hunt at 4,600. So I'm okay going with Pacheco there. And then Smith still at 3,000, but he's a better play in the full PPR scoring there. But I think this one is kind of depending on your side of choice, it's a salt to taste. What do you have left in salary? Do you have a strong preference for one of these guys? Because we in our initial baseline projections, we had Pacheco, Mahomes, and Hunt each for about 36 rushing yards. We had all 3 running backs for a little bit below or a little bit above 2 targets. and it's just like, I don't know who's going to do what. And then the position itself hasn't really scored a lot of touchdowns for Kansas City this year. Mm-hmm. So that just makes it really hard to confidently choose one of them because it's really is a whack-a-mole. And we know that Reed will do the hot hand or he'll scheme for certain things. And it just makes it tricky. Long live Derek Gore. Long live Derek Gore.
So would you like me to try to make a take here, or do you want my well-reasoned kind of pussy response, which is the actual real one? I've got both of them lined up.
I just kind of gave the reasonable response that there is no way to go. You need to plant your flag here. If Eric was here, where you would plant that flag. So.
Yes. So I'll give first kind of the well-measured response, which is actually reflective of what my DFS lineups are. And then I'll also go out and pick somebody for you guys as well. So if somebody's just building one lineup, I'll tell you who to play at the end for that. For me, though, I'm split amongst all 3 of these guys. It's so hard to say that one of these guys is going to be the guy in the backfield. Last week, 7 carries for Kareem Hunt. He also got 1 target in the passing game, 7 carries for Isaiah Pacheco. He got 3 targets in the passing game. And then you had Brashard Smith, who just had 1 carry, but he did have 3 targets in the passing game. So for me, I do think that Pacheco is the first man to touch the field, and he's the one who is most likely to get the biggest workload. Also, something worth noting here is that over on Tails, I did a collaboration parlay with Eitan and Eric. It's pinned to my profile right now. Anybody who likes that post, if it does end up winning, we're going to pick one person who liked that post to get a $50 Tails credit. So if you guys either go to tails.bet or download the Tails app, just go to my profile, like that post, and you have a chance to win some free stuff. But the relation there is one of the legs of the parlay is Eric's pick. It's Isaiah Pacheco over 28.5 rushing yards. And I see it the same way as him. I think Pacheco is going to be the first guy on the field. He is the one who, if he starts well, is more likely to get more touches. It's hard to rely on any one of these guys to be like, oh, I'm going to play 50% of them or anything like that. But if I was playing one lineup and I can only pick one Chiefs guy to roster out of the backfield, I would go towards Pacheco. Like I said, I do have exposure to all 3, but I do have more of Pacheco, slightly more of him than I do of the other 2 running backs.
All right. You mentioned, some free ideas here. I'm giving away free money. This is team free money. I just looked. I was 1-41 in my DraftKings cash game today, my main lineup. I play it a little more aggressive than a regular cash game lineup, but not much because I put it in the double ups, triple ups, quits. I finished bottom 10% in the single entry double ups. No bueno. And on Thursday night, I did not win a single one of my 17 head-to-heads. So I would just put 10 more out there. People are getting smart. They're scooping these up. I got 10 more out there in the DK streets. Username is Emac, because I've been around so damn long. I don't have to put numbers after my name. Username is Emac. Go get them. Go get them. I'm giving back to the community. You know what? DraftKings is also giving back to the community here with their Pick 6 promotion. Bet $5 on their Pick 6 promotion and on your first effort, and you will get $50 to use in their Pick 6 format. Not a bad deal. They don't give a lot away these days, and this is almost a something for nothing kind of wager. Pick 6 is not available in every state. It's not here in Florida, but it is available in, I think it's 28 or 29 states. So you definitely want to check that out, that opportunity. You can log in. You can go in through the link in our description here. And that gives us a little cookie for shouting them out. A reminder, if you or anyone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
And also you should, if you have, so two things: call the number if you have a gambling problem, and harass Eric Lindquist on social media as well. Those are the two real true solutions to your problem.
Oh, it saves everything. It saves everything. All right, the wide receivers. So this is not besmirching Matt Riley. This is not against you. You have a good point here. He says theoretically there are some downfield targets with Worthy, Hollywood Brown, etc. Tyquan Thornton. Well, Thornton's new to the team. He's kind of got that MBS role. And who's the other guy that was their kick returner, went to the Jets, came back, never had a 100-yard receiving game. I'm blanking on who that idiot is, but he was the guy that ran a lot of empty routes. That's kind of Tyquan Thornton. Is there something there? There could be. This could be one of those change of sceneries that actually works. It could be better having a Hall of Fame quarterback throwing to him, but he didn't do much while he was with the Patriots. I think he had two touchdown games and 6 total touchdowns in his 2 or 3 seasons there, going from memory. So he is kind of interesting. I think he will be part of the 3 wide receiver set when Rashee Rice returns. I think it's going to be Juju Smith-Schuster and Hollywood Brown that kind of fade back a little bit. They're still going to be playing, but they'll be kind of numbers 4 and 5. And it's just because of their skill set and what they do. We've seen Brown get even set aside that 16 target game when Worthy got hurt in the opener. Brown has still been peppered with targets. He hasn't done anything with them. When we look to see, how good has he been? Well, he does have a 149-yard catch, but he only has 2 of more than 20 yards. Tyquan Thornton does have 7 of more than 20 yards. You've got Travis Kelce somehow has 2 of more than 20 yards. And then Worthy, in his limited action on his 11 catches, he does have 2 for more than 20 yards. So there are some downfield threats there. It was just when the cupboard was completely bare, it was super bare. A bit, empty, etc. So I love Worthy in all formats. I think he is a priority play, and I think he's a captain and MVP option. The guy I like next after that, it's probably Juju, just a little bit, because he'll be on the field more than Hollywood Brown, but he hasn't gotten as many targets. But I think with the propensity for Brown to, hurt himself by tripping on a blade of grass, those are always problems. He probably actually pulled something in warmups already. So I lean slightly towards Juju, but you can make arguments for all of them and throw Kelce in there too. As the secondary pass catchers, again, it's more of a whack-a-mole. I don't know who it's going to be. But the third guy for me would be Tyquan Thornton today. So I'm curious to see how the percentages work out when I build my 50 lineups here. But that's how I see the Kansas City receivers. Is there anything you want to add in there? You want to mention Kelce and Noah Gray is in play as a punt on DraftKings for sure.
Yeah. So 2 things I want to bring up. One, I totally agree with you on the high end. Not that we have other high end pass catchers to choose from Kansas City, but Worthy is the guy to me. And he's my favorite contrarian captain. Of all the captains that we have, or captain/MVP, that we're projecting to pull single-digit ownership, Worthy is my favorite. So we have not seen a massive game from Xavier Worthy yet this season. In fact, we haven't even seen a decent game really from him this season. With that said, 2 games ago, he got a little bit banged up against the Ravens. Same thing last week against the Jaguars, too. He just hasn't really been 100% healthy ever since he got taken out by that friendly fire by Travis Kelce in week 1. But 8 targets, caught 5 of them for 83 yards against the Ravens, also had 2 carries for 38 yards. Then last week, where he had to leave the game multiple times with different kinds of like just nicks and bangs that he picked up over the course of the game. Was targeted 9 times, caught 6 passes for 42 yards. Also had a carry for 9 yards against a pretty difficult Jaguars defense. We saw that game in primetime. Jaguars ended up winning that game outright. I think that he has really considerable upside that is just not really going noticed by the field right now because we haven't seen him do it yet this year. You go back to the playoffs last year, the Chiefs offense was anemic in the Super Bowl. The one bright spot, Worthy in that game, had 8 catches for 157 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Bills in the AFC Championship game. He had 85 yards and a touchdown. He's explosive, big play upside. And I think that he is somebody who is a number 1 wide receiver in the future. It's just kind of a matter of when he actually realizes that potential. And I think it could end up starting tonight. 9K I actually think is a little bit of a bargain for Xavier Worthy. And then you're getting him at $13,500 in the captain spot and single-digit ownership. So he's my favorite contrarian captain, even over on FanDuel, where he doesn't have the benefit of the full-point PPR. He's not somebody who we're expecting to go out and be catching, like 9, 10, 11 passing games. He's a home run hitter sort of player. So I think that he has really big play upside in terms of catching like 50, 60-yard touchdowns from Patrick Mahomes. So I think that the half-point PPR doesn't impact him as much as it does, say, like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's going to be getting more volume in the passing game. So I really like the upside of Xavier Worthy. He's my favorite pay-up pass catcher from the Chiefs. Actually, my favorite pass catcher overall in the game. And on the low end, I like taking shots on Tyquan Thornton. I thought that once Worthy got back and was healthy, that was going to be the end of Thornton. Seems to not be the case. Caught a touchdown against the Ravens a couple weeks ago. Then last week against the Jaguars, still 5 targets, caught 3 of them for 90 yards. This is another guy who has massive big play upside. It seems like 1-2 times per game, he's getting a deep look down the field from Patrick Mahomes. And actually last week, he got 3 of them because he had 90 receiving yards on 3 catches, and his longest catch was 34 yards. So all of his receptions are right around that 30-yard range. So on the cheap end, I like taking shots on Tyquan Thornton. On the high end, I like Xavier Worthy. Those are my 2 favorite Chiefs pass catchers.
All right. It was Mecole Hardman. That's who I was trying to think of.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, he was like, this is going to be the time. No, it was never the time. All right. Flipping it over to Detroit. We have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is phenomenal. Going to work the vast majority of his snaps are going to come out of the slot, but he is capable of running everything on the route tree. He's perfectly fine downfield receiver. Doesn't really need to because that's Jameson Williams' specialty here. So St. Brown has been the all-pro first-team receiver the last 2 years, and he's made the Pro Bowl the last 3. He's phenomenal. There's not much you could say poorly about him. He is he's excellent. The one knock is we just haven't seen a lot of passing volume for Detroit as a whole. He is 14th overall with 8.2 targets per game, which is pretty solid considering there's not a lot of volume that's been needed just yet for Detroit. On the other side, you have Williams, who is second in the league with just over 20 yards per reception. He is 4th or 5th, I think. Top 16 with 436 air yards. So he's definitely the downfield threat. He is kind of the home run hitter. Just hasn't really connected yet on all those air yards and volume. But again, he's getting 20 yards a pop when he catches the ball. So I think that's interesting. And then St. Brown, incredibly active. Leads the league with 6 touchdowns. 10 of the 20 red zone receiving opportunities for Kansas City this season have been to Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I like both those guys. We talked a little bit about Khalif Raymond. He should be active tonight. He hurt his neck in returning a punt in the first quarter against Cincinnati, but he is obviously going to be playing. We saw Isaac Tesla get his season high in plays with 21 and 34% of the snaps. That was kind of a direct result with Raymond being out. Otherwise, he's kind of been playing, low teens, 14 or so snaps per game. He'll probably slide down a little bit to that, but somehow he has 2 touchdowns So that's just interesting options there. But this is kind of a two-man show with then Laporta being second on the team, but only 27 targets. He's had at least 4 in every game this season, which is nice. But he, again, this is haven't really seen much going around. For the other tight end, Shane Zylstra is on the injured reserve, so Ross Dwelly will be the third tight end. And then you have Brock Wright, interestingly enough, has been playing on about half of the snaps. That's more than what it was last year. There were certain games where he would get up to 60% last year, depending on what they were doing with their formations. But he, last year, I think he had 14 targets. This year he has 6, but not overly exciting. You're kind of digging deep here. But we need to find a few punt options. I still prefer Noah Gray on the other side over Brock Wright, but Wright will be on the field a ton. What do you want to add to the Detroit passing game?
Yeah, by the way, I do agree with you. If I'm going all the way down and looking at somebody like the 1K range, it is Noah Gray over Brock Wright for me as well. Sometimes the Lions drop some of those designer plays for Brock Wright where he catches like the 1-2 yard touchdowns. They have so much talent on their offense. It is very weird that they're like, hey, we're on the 1 yard line. It's Brock Wright time. We drew up our Brock Wright plays that seem to come out really only on prime times to fuck up slates. But I do prefer Noah Gray is actually somewhat involved, like relative to guys who are around the 1K range. He's more involved in the offense than the other guys who are priced around there. Like we could reasonably expect a target or two to go the way of Noah Gray. And that's kind of more than you could say for any other guy who's priced around.
For what it's worth, Gray has 2 red zone targets in the last 4 games. Kelsey has 4. So yep. Gray's out there. He just doesn't. He's not a downfield threat at all. He's having to do a lot more blocking this year. His ADOT's like 5.5 yards, but I think he's what 1,600 or 1,800. He's the guy to go to though on DraftKings.
Yeah. So for me, I agree with you on the low end. Noah Gray, prefer him over Brock Wright. If you guys absolutely need to punt, with that said, I didn't find looking at my exposures that I needed to go that cheap all that frequently. I've got. Let's see, what do I have? 10% of Noah Gray, and that is by far the most exposure I have to any player who's priced around that, 1K range. Actually, of anybody 2K or below, by a lot. I have more of Noah Gray than any of those other guys. So on the high end, if you could fit in Amon-Ra St. Brown, clearly I'm not going to try to talk you off of Amon-Ra St. Brown. If he's in a lineup, cool, that's perfectly reasonable and fine. The only issue I have with him is that I prefer Mahomes, Worthy, Gibbs, and those three pay up options. I have more exposure to all of them than I do to Amon-Ra St. Brown. So that's the only sticking point, is that he's 4th in the pecking order for me amongst the expensive options. On the low end, I'll tell you the guy who I am most afraid of on this slate, who I don't have a ton of exposure to, Emac, that's Jameson Williams. They paid him a bunch of money in the offseason. He clearly has a ton of upside and a ton of potential, but I only have 20% exposure to Jameson Williams across my 150 lineups. It's just kind of hard to fit him into lineups where he's priced in the mid-range. He has all the potential in the world to break the slate, but I just found other guys I prefer to get to. There's other guys that project better for us in our data. Same deal here without making any changes to Sims. You guys will see that Jameson Williams shows up in 21% of lineups. Just the Lions have so many weapons on offense, and now also you got like somebody like Tesla who's being included in the mix. There's always the home run potential for Jameson Williams, but he doesn't even get as many looks as like Tyquan Thornton does this year.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun slate. It really is. I see, and it's probably directed at me because I do mention Noah Gray all the time. Has it ever paid off? Well, the thing about Noah Gray is he's always at least 3,000 or less. Usually the salary is starting with a 2. He's on the field a ton, and I think he's in the final year of his 3-year deal. But the Chiefs were like, no, you're a huge part of our game. Kelsey doesn't really block. He did more last year than he ever had before, but that was out of desperation. But it's what you get around Gray on the showdowns. And the Chiefs are always on the showdowns, as I mentioned. That's why it sounds like we're recommending him a lot.
Yeah, it's true.
It's a happenstance circumstance. It's just the way the player pool works out here. What percentage, and then I'll quickly go through special teams here. What percentage of are you getting from Mahomes in the captain spot? The unfettered 50 lineups has me with 76%. I'm going to tamp that down. But do you want to be over or under the 30 or so percent we're projecting for him on DraftKings?
I'm right around even with the field on Patrick Mahomes in the multiplier spot. With that said, the lineups I do have that I get two of Mahomes on DraftKings or FanDuel leave a good amount of salary on the table. So, for instance, I'm just looking at my top. Actually, I'll pull them up on screen just beyond the top ones that I have. But you'll see here, if you look at the top sim ROI lineups that have Patrick Mahomes, Emac, $2,600 in salary left on the table. $2,200 in salary left on the table. $800 in salary left on the table. That's not all that much. $1,800 in salary left on the table. The reason these lineups are leaving as much salary as they do is because that's kind of what needs to happen for a Mahomes MVP or a Mahomes captain lineup to ultimately end up projecting well and be unique enough to where it does pretty well in our simulations. So as far as Mahomes goes, yes, he is the player I get the most exposure to overall in the captain/MVP spot, Emac. But the caveat is the lineups that he shows up in are kind of off the beaten path. They're lineups that do not project to have very many dupes. And they're also lineups that leave a lot of salary on the table. Because if you are going to go to Mahomes, you just have to be different somewhere. The simplest way to do it is to leave, $1,500 to $3,000 in salary on the table. So cash games, play him and use all the salary. For GPPs, either look for a couple contrarian guys. I mentioned before, I really, really like Xavier Worthy. Relative to ownership, I'm most overweight to the field on Worthy. I'm about even with the field on Mahomes. Just those lineups leave a bunch of salary on the table.
All right, let's quickly go. We got 8 minutes until kickoff. Hit that like button if you haven't. Even better yet, hit that subscribe button. We have 106,000 subscribers. We are up almost 1,500 during just football season the last 6 weeks. So check that out if you have not subscribed already. And the notification bell gives you an alert every time we go live. And we are constantly going live with shows on this, and you're going to want to catch all of the NBA content that is coming up. So Harrison Butker off to a slow start. He is 10 of 13 on his field goal attempts. 2 of his misses were from 50 yards. Now we give him a little bit of a mulligan on that, but he's not been great, and especially after he got the bag. So that's been a little bit disappointing. Since he signed that large contract, he has missed 9 of his 22 field goals from beyond 50. Now, again, he plays outside all that, but it's just not quite the same as it has been in the past. If we look to Jake Bates, he has led the league last year with 64 PATs made on 67 attempts. He has 29 field goal attempts. He's got a 90% conversion rate on those. We want to remember he set the UFL record 64-yard field goal for the Michigan Panthers. He has missed 2 of his 3 kicks from beyond 50. But there's circumstance. One of them was at the end of the first half. It was a 67-yard attempt. Would have been the NFL record had he made it. So we're going to give him a mulligan on that one. But his other one, I think, was a 55-yard miss back in week 2. So those were really from distance there. So like him a fair amount. On the defensive side here, Detroit, like I mentioned at the top of the show, is missing like 9 regular rotational players. They're missing 2 starting defensive backs, 2 starting defensive linemen, and 1 linebacker. And then the other 7 guys are they're the guys that are feathering in constantly. So that makes it a little tough. But the Lions somehow have 16 sacks this year, Greg. Second in the league. Kansas City's allowed 7, but Aiden Hutchinson has 5. And then Al Quadin Muhammad has 3.5. So I think you can play the Detroit defense here, looking for that splash play. On the other side, Kansas City doesn't have a lot of sacks. It doesn't have a lot of turnovers, but they are at home in Arrowhead, and that is a massive home field advantage. This is a much better defense that we've seen in years. And Goff is around average when it comes to his interception and his sack rates. So they're and after letting Trevor Lawrence and people getting mad at who's the lineman, Chris
Jones.
Yeah, Chris Jones. They're going to be fired up tonight. So I think you can consider those, but I'm not getting nearly as much as I do on Showdown slates. But I wanted to call those positions out. Anything you want to add? We got 5 minutes to go. Anybody terrifying you that you're not getting in your lineups? Too much of somebody?
So one thing I did, just based on when we were talking about some of the Lions pass catchers before, in general, I don't have a ton of exposure to Jameson Williams, but I did give him an ROI boost just to get him a little bit in the captain spot. I think that as far as his ceiling goes, that's definitely something that exists. So I'm going to get myself a little bit overweight to the field to him in the multiplier spot, whereas I'll be underweight to the field to him in the flex spot, just because it's so unlikely that Jameson Williams has a game where he scores like 12 fantasy points. He's just kind of projected for what his overall average outcome is. But the reality with Jameson Williams is either has games where he scores like 5, 6, 7 fantasy points, or he hits that long touchdown. He puts up, like 20 to 25 fantasy points. So I'm going to play Jameson Williams. I prefer him a little bit in the multiplier spot. So I just gave him an ROI boost that I'd get a little bit of exposure to him there. Something else to add as well. You're talking about defenses. I don't have very much exposure to the defenses in this game. $3,400 for the Chiefs, $3,800 for the Lions, whatever. As a last man in, if you absolutely needed to use them to save the salary, I guess that's acceptable. But I do think this game should be a little bit more on the high scoring end than it being lower scoring. As far as the kickers go, that's a spot I really do like to go to save salary. Harrison Butker, I'm getting to him in north of 30% a lineup. So if I'm going to be rostering one of the kickers, I lean a little bit more towards him than I do to Jake Bates. But both of them are not all that difficult to get overweight to. We've got Butker projected for just over 20 fantasy points. Bates, just over 20% ownership. And then Bates, let's see, where's Bates? Yeah, I think we've got Bates we got Bates owned in the teens. So both these kickers are pretty easy to get overweight to the field to. And at $5,200 and $5,000, I think the kickers are both pretty reasonable salary saving options. So I'm generally high on the kickers relative to the field for showdown slates, and today is no different.
All righty. I am getting my lineups copied in here. I will upload them. You guys have 3 minutes to go. If you have not yet uploaded your lineups, you better get something in there soon. Did it work?
So also I've got pulled up here the most duped lineups, Emac. So these are the lineups that if you guys play them, you're going to be holding hands with a lot of the field. The number one thing that stands out, the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The top 7 most duped lineups all have Mahomes at the multiplier spot. And that goes for almost all of the most duped lineups. Even if we were to scroll down a little bit, which makes sense given what his ownership is, it is so heavily skewed towards Patrick Mahomes. So if you guys, I said this before, if you play Patrick Mahomes in the multiplier spot and you use all or almost all of the salary, you're almost guaranteed to be duped a bunch of times. That's what's happening with all these lineups. The most duped lineup, Mahomes, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Juju Smith-Schuster, Noah Gray, and Xavier Worthy. The second most duped lineup, Mahomes, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Hollywood Brown, Isaiah Pacheco, Jameson Williams, Xavier Worthy. So anyway, the clear trend there, Mahomes using most of the salary. That's what all of the most dupes are.
All right. I see Shamara asking who would you run. I'm dropping the link to my article. I literally rank every single person in the player pool and tell you where the captains sort of cut off for me. They run about 5 deep tonight. The argument is what about Goff, or is it JMO that ends up in there? So, but that's a good way to see all of it. These are posted. This is usually posted around 12:30 on Sunday mornings. So you'll get that. They usually release it just before kickoff. But I spent about 3.5 hours on these articles to leave no stone unturned. So do that for all of the primetime games. Tomorrow it's going to be a doubleheader for Monday Night Football, the third of 4. So I will be ranking the 2-game player pool, but I will rank all of the viable options and give a little thought on each one. So those articles take a little bit longer to write, but it's worth the 10-minute read to just see it all at once. That should be posted probably around noon tomorrow as well. All right, Greg, we're leaning in here towards lock. We talked about, you want to give them the link join? Do you want to talk maybe tails.bet as we wrap up here?
Yeah. So if you guys go over to tails.bet, you can see bets from myself and all the other guys here. You can see a lot of Emac posted a little bit of bets. He posted one earlier, but also you can get a lot of DFS write-ups from Emac. So go check that out. Either go to tails.bet or download the Tails app. And one other thing I want to remind you guys about is that we are sponsored here today by DraftKings Pick 6. And new DraftKings Pick 6 customers play $5 in first pick sets and get $50 in bonus picks. If you have a problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Just call 789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus, valid only where Pick 6 operates. See dkng.co/Pick 6 states. This is void in New York and Ontario or where prohibited. Eligibility restrictions do apply. One per new DraftKings customer. $5 in first pick set to receive a max $50 issued as non-withdrawable bonus picks that expire in 14 days. This offer ends on October 13th. So that is tomorrow. Terms and conditions can be found at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. This is sponsored by DraftKings. Good luck tonight, everybody.